this week's Top Gear, how touring car drivers cope in showroom saloons, the grisly tale of what happens if you buy a stolen car, and an amble round the Alps in some Rolls-Royce Silver Ghosts.
2-litre touring car racing is the most exciting form of motorsport to hit Britain in years. Clever rules mean that no one team is dominant, and that makes for close, action-packed races. And best of all, it's not like Formula One, where the cars look like wheeled spaceships. We can actually go to a showroom and buy cars like these.
Except for one small thing. We can't. You see, this Vauxhall Cavalier is about as far removed from your Vauxhall Cavalier as your Vauxhall Cavalier is from an ox cart. You want proof? Well, that's why we've come to Silverstone. This is going to be a lot of fun.
What we decided to do was take the drivers from the British Touring Car Championship and put them in road-going versions of their race cars. Then we'd send them round Silverstone one by one against the clock.
And there goes Steve Soper in his road-going BMW. Now, in his racer, he'd get round Silverstone in 2 minutes 1, 2 minutes 2 seconds. In that, though, I wish I brought a good book.
In fact, we were in for a shock. Soper drove his 320i like the very devil and was back in the pits far faster than we'd expected. That BMW was either seriously tuned or seriously fast. How fast can he do it in his racing car?
2-1 or something.
So how fast do you think you went round in a normal road car?
Late twos.
Late twos, 2 minutes, 28 seconds.
Well, there's my next year's race car then. Forget the race car, I'll take that.
Tiffany Dell's arrived, go on.
This... You don't bring all the cars, they'll all cheat. There's a careener out there faster in a straight line than an Exocet missile.
So you reckon all the cars are bent?
Bent? Bent?
So do you think...
Beautiful Alfa Romeo standard car.
Tiff, your beautiful Alfa Romeo went round in 2 minutes and 39 seconds, which is 38 seconds slower than the touring car lap record.
But it's a standard, it has electrical appliances, it has normal
Tiff,
suspension.
either you are an appalling driver or that Alfa stands no chance of winning next year.
Sorry, I am not appalling. The Alfa's wonderful, they're all cheats. I'm going home, I'm going home.
Now, the way these guys were driving, it was inevitable that sooner or later one of them would come unstuck. John Cleland is your commentator.
Oh, hi, spun it! Woohoo! Beautiful, Will, well lost.
Of course, the last person to lose it in a race was Nigel Mansell. He should thank his lucky stars that when he swerved in front of Tiff at Donington, Tiff wasn't driving one of these.
Tiff, what on earth are you doing in a Volvo?
Well, Jeremy, this is the next entry into the British Touring Car Championship next year. Volvo believe it's a good road car. Why can't it be a good racing car?
So what, you have to wear a headscarf then instead of a helmet?
No, Jeremy, no, this is a serious entry into the British Touring Car Championship.
So how do you think it's going to get on today?
Well, today, maybe not so good. It's a nice, soft road car, but it has the potential.
It's also burdened with you in it.
Well, there are other matters, but we shall see, we shall see.
Get on with it.
Thank you.
Volvo desperately needs a sporty image for its surprisingly sprightly new 850 and reckons that if people are shown what it can do on the racetrack, they'll win the hearts of younger buyers. So how did it get on with our man Nidell at the helm?
Tiff, I have bad news. This may well be a good road car, but I'm afraid it's 12 seconds a lap slower around here than the BMW.
Well, yes, but then I would have expected that, you see, because the BMW is born and bred as a sports saloon. This is a nice, comfortable, maybe slightly overweight, softly sprung family saloon. And the beauty of the touring car regulations is that you can take away all that soft springing, take away the excessive weight. It's got a very good potential. It's got a 5-cylinder, 20-valve engine. You can tune that up. and you'll see that gap coming down and down.
They are illegal. You're cheating.
Not on the rail
illegal about those?
Yeah,
Look at this.
Well, then that's how they come.
You're running on slick tyres. I hope it rains.
I thought you were running on avgas today.
They smelt like it.
2 minutes and 35 seconds, which makes you the third fastest. You're slower than the Toyota, you're slower than the BMW.
Where did you go off?
Which day did you set off, Rob?
No, listen, this chassis is as good as my race car, I've got to tell you.
It's not very good.
You've become a father.
Yeah, apparently.
So that's why you've slowed down then,
Yes,
obviously.
yes.
Yeah, very sensitive.
Yeah.
It's just a game until we start, and then it's serious, no matter what it is.
So serious, in fact, that the chaps spent all day pointing accusing fingers at one another. It was hard to work anything out except that Will Hoy is the only touring car driver with facial hair, that Patrick Watts ran out of petrol, and that Tim Harvey turned up with bald tyres. So, what have we learned today? Well, we've learned that road-going saloon cars are around about 30-35 seconds a lap slower around Silverstone than their racing sisters. We've learned that the BMW, the Peugeot and the Renault are the fastest, and that the Volvo, perhaps unsurprisingly, is the slowest. We've also learned that the drivers aren't the usual prima donna types. They don't strut about the pits, preening their hair and looking cool. They're quite a nice bunch.
Ever wondered what happens to accident write-offs and seriously damaged cars? Well, they're sold by insurance companies as salvage. Here, they're being auctioned to the highest bidder. Some are sold to be rebuilt, and some end up as parts. Trouble is, too many are bought specifically to provide new identities for stolen cars. Ask yourself, who pays up to 400 quid for something slaughtered like this, when its real value is perhaps only 50 quid or so? It's twisted metal that represents the first link in the stolen car chain. What the motoring lowlife do is to buy a written-off car like this one to provide the identity for a stolen car. They then go out and steal an identical one and simply transfer the chassis plates and registration number onto the stolen car, so the stolen car assumes the identity of the written-off car. This is known as ringing.
Ringing started late 60s, early 70s. RS2000s were the favourite car at that period of time. Or hot hatches. Then it moved into RS Turbos, XR3s, Cosworth Sierras. And I think as the ringer realised that the insurance premiums are going up on performance cars, he moved into a bigger market, saloon vehicles.
So how widespread is the ringing problem?
25% of motor salvage sold today is being sold to ringers. Mainly the late new type salvage, badly damaged, vehicles that require body shells. That's the type of vehicle that a ringer buys.
This is the pound at the West Midlands Stolen Car Squad, and all these cars have a question mark over their ownership. So what happens to you if you mistakenly buy a stolen car? What are your rights? Well, unless you buy from a reputable dealer, absolutely none. A Court of Appeal case in 1987 established a legal precedent that says that the purchaser of a stolen car, however well-intentioned, never, ever acquires good title to that car. So that means that if you do mistakenly buy a ringer, you stand to lose not only the car, but the hard-earned cash you paid for it as well. And if you think that's unfair, so do the Hoskins.
Well, my husband was out shopping and he pulled over for a routine check. The police suspected the car was stolen and arrested him. They kept him for 8 hours in the police station and eventually came to search our garage, found nothing. They kept the car. A couple of weeks later, the insurance company that owned the car got involved and wanted the sum of $2,600 from us. We eventually settled for 2,400, having paid 2,900 back in '91. So all in all, it's cost us 5,300, an awful lot of aggravation, and it's been a complete nightmare.
Remember that the Hoskins drove and owned their Fiesta for over 3 years before its true identity was discovered. And that's part of the problem. A well-run car is very hard to spot. The police say that some ringers are nothing short of craftsmen, and this rung Rover is the work of a real pro. The old VIN number was drilled out, meticulously filled, repainted, and a new one stamped over.
Ringing is a major problem now. Look in 1992. 500,000 motor vehicles were stolen in the United Kingdom. 150,000 were never recovered. So many of these vehicles, identities have been changed by ringers and come back out onto the road and unfortunately purchased by innocent people.
And the problem is made worse by the fact that it's relatively easy to get hold of a V5 registration document. In some cases, DVLA at Swansea will even issue a duplicate one. But just to show you how devious these ringers are becoming, the police have lent Top Gear a forged V5 registration document. Now, these are available on the black market for £40, and there's quite a few in circulation. They're pretty convincing. All they lack is the watermark. So if you're looking at a V5 on a used car, make sure you hold it up to the light. There are other ways to protect yourself too, like not meeting the seller halfway in a car park and making sure that he or she is the registered keeper and lives at the address on the registration document. And don't fall for the old one about selling it on behalf of a friend. The more documentation that the owner has, like insurance cover notes, past MOTs, old servicing bills, the better. They're signs of genuine long-term ownership. While you're looking at the registration document, it's critical to check that the chassis and engine numbers tally with those on the car. Look at the VIN plate and chassis number. Has it been tampered with? Is the plate distorted? Get out the owner's manual and find out where the chassis number is, even if it means getting down on your hands and knees. There's nothing to stop you speaking to the previous owner before you buy either. His name will be on the registration document. And never, ever pay in cash. A cheque or banker's draft are much, much easier to trace. While it's hard to apportion blame for what is fast becoming one of the most dangerous aspects of buying a second-hand car, we at Top Gear believe that some of the responsibility should be placed firmly at the doors of insurance companies for not controlling the byproduct of their own industry. As it stands, it's still alarmingly easy for anybody to go and buy a badly damaged car and use its identity to dress a stolen one in borrowed clothes.
Some of the larger companies have been taking an initiative by introducing a system whereby they are classifying the salvage before we get it. Companies such as Eagle Star, where they are telling us before we get the vehicle that the vehicle is to be de-identified and sold only for spare parts. This is carried out by us by removing all identification from the vehicle, cutting out VIN plates, removing registration plates, any form of identity removed from the vehicle and kept securely. These vehicles then go into the auction and are sold without identity as spare parts only.
So at least some of the larger insurance companies are being more responsible, making sure that their salvage doesn't get into the wrong hands. But even the industry itself admits there's room for improvement.
For many, many years now, insurance companies have voluntarily notified to Swansea cases where they write off a vehicle. The idea then is that if someone tries to put that vehicle back onto the road, then the police have the opportunity to inspect it, to see whether it is in fact a ringer. The problem has been that the number of notifications going into DVLA exceed 400,000 a year. And this, in fact, has overwhelmed the police, and they can't expect to inspect every single one of those vehicles.
So what's to be done? Well, we at Top Gear recommend several things. Firstly, we'd like to see a levy of £1 taken from everybody's insurance premium to fund a heavyweight anti-ringing campaign. And secondly, we'd like to see a special fund created, possibly financed by the insurance industry, to compensate honest buyers who have inadvertently bought stolen cars in good faith. And lastly, we think it's simply scandalous that chassis numbers and logbooks are so easily available. We'd like to see government legislation passed to ensure that the identities of written-off cars likely to be used for ringing are destroyed.
Last summer, a large assortment of Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost enthusiasts celebrated the 80th anniversary of the achievement that gave their car the reputation it still enjoys today. They did so by driving 1,750 miles over some of the toughest roads in Europe. Back in 1913, Rolls wasn't yet a byword for the best car in the world, and the most challenging motoring competition around was the Austrian Alpine Trial. This was the Austro-Hungarian Empire's equivalent of the Monte Carlo Rally and Le Mans 24 Hours all rolled into one, a flat-out reliability trial taking 8 days. The team of 4 Silver Ghosts entered in 1913 carried off nearly all the honours, and the company never felt the need to bother with competition again. Then, as now, the route was to start and finish in Vienna, Austria. It was then all in one country, but to follow the same route these days meant taking in northern Italy, Slovenia and Croatia. And in 1993, the participants were allowed a rather leisurely 15 days. The cars for the rerun came from all over the place: Canada, Australia, Zimbabwe, the USA, and a smattering of European countries. And some came with interesting stories.
Well, the cars travelled the world a bit because it was sold to Captain Chance in 1920, who became the consul in Lima, in Peru, in 1924. And that was where I found the car in 1982. And rummaging through the glove pocket, I found the 1924 tax disc for the car, sort of London. So we knew exactly where it was, and we were able to get the number plates back. It's a very, very original car, actually.
It was delivered as a new chassis on the same day that war was declared in 1914, in August the 4th, 1914, and I bought it in 1955. It remained with me for 10, 12 years before I decided let's put a body on it. And I got it finished in 1985. That's 30 years after I bought the chassis. I took my time about it.
Leaving Vienna, the cars headed down the very long straight road where the local rival company, Austro-Daimler, used to speed test its cars. Needless to say, the Rolls-Royces took this well within their stride. In addition to the 44 Silver Ghosts, there were 4 Phantoms and a solitary Vauxhall Prince Henry, which had been admitted from New Zealand. The first mountain challenge was the 5,000-foot Catchberg Pass, a gradient that had defeated a Ghost in 1912, a year before the Great Rolls victory. It seems to present fewer difficulties today, not least to the solo Alan Clark in his 1919 military model.
It didn't fly up. It's been flying up most of the passes, but you had to use second and bottom. But it's steep, you know. It's a steep hill.
How do you like it when it was on surface?
Oh, better, more fun. I mean, the whole point of the rally is sport, you know.
Seems to be steaming a bit there.
Oh, I will do, yes.
Nothing to worry about.
Well, no, it'll go off. It'll need a bit of water now, but it's on the boil.
What did you think of that climb?
Oh, it's quite good, really. Yes. Came up in second gear except for the last bit, so that's why it's hot.
Before the start in Vienna, there were 1 or 2 people, myself included, who thought that a procession of very old cars over some of the most challenging mountain roads in Europe would leave a trail of devastation. In fact, they're all taking it in the stride. The odd puncture and the odd oil leak is about the worst that's happened. And not even the rather changeable climatic conditions here in Austria is managing to dampen the spirits of the enthusiastic participants. Every afternoon, conditions were positively monsoon-like, but the engineering talents of Sir Henry Royce were more than a match for the inclement weather. For hardier souls who couldn't be troubled to erect their hoods, a little bailing out was called for. Only one car had a bit of a problem.
It's got an ignition problem. It's got two ignitions as all these vehicles. One's a magneto and the other's a coil. The coil's not functioning very well. But it's not really functioning very well on the magneto either. Are you looking for two totally women because they're in the back? We haven't been speaking for the last half hour. Those other people are all back at the hotel. They'll be fed up. They won't know what to do. We're having great fun here.
Can I have a reverberation?
3 days out of Vienna, the tour moved into northern Italy and onto some of the best driving roads of the trip. The Italian Dolomites provided a splendid scenic background to passes like the Fordoi and Rolla, both over 6,000 feet. Going up was no problem, but coming down was a different matter. Nearly all the cars had rather feeble two-wheel brakes. The oldest car here is this 1911 Ghost that has come all the way from Australia to take part. Because of last-minute repairs, it literally missed the boat and had to be flown here by jumbo jet. Amazingly, it fitted in the hold with 2 inches to spare. Now, the engine, I've got to be pretty careful here because I'm petrified of scratching it. The engine, like all the Ghosts here, 7.5 litres, 6 cylinders in 2 banks of 3, producing between 50 and 60 horsepower, and a top speed of 60 miles an hour. It's one of the few cars on the event without an electric starter, so it's a matter of cranking by hand, but I'm told it's very easy. There you are. Look at that. What they didn't tell me was that cranking Ghosts is a rather hazardous occupation, and any Ghost owner worth his salt has probably broken at least one arm in his career. But whatever its bad habits, they can be tolerated when a car is finished like this. It's not all charging up and down mountains. On a high-class car tour, the social events come thick and fast.
And I wish I had known there were going to be more evenings like this. I would have brought more clothes, actually. I mean, it's been pretty fancy parties.
But essential chores like lubrication, greasing and servicing all had to be fitted in despite the hangovers. Tyres seemed to be giving the worst headaches, even though most of them were brand new. That seems to be one of the stories of this event, Punctures. People have had them, I think.
It's not uncommon. The problem is they don't make them necessarily with the same quality control when that was what all the tyres were. Because originally they didn't have very many tyre problems at all, and they could have somewhat rougher roads than we've got.
So how long will this take you now this morning? Well, it would normally take me, if I play around and clean things, which I probably won't, it would take me about 3 hours. That's a skimpy. I'm only going to do the things which matter.
The original 1913 Alpine trial route had to be stuck to come what may, and the 2 days to be spent in war-torn Croatia were the biggest talking point of the trip. In fact, the nearest fighting was nearly 100 miles from the rally route, and not a stray bullet was to be seen. The scenery was very different to that of the Alps, and for all the world we could have been in Cheddar Gorge. Croatia was particularly close to the hearts of everyone, as all the entrants were raising money to rebuild a children's hospital in the east of the country. There were more unsurfaced roads here, and it gave a greater flavour of what the original event might have been like. Yet again, the Silver Ghost stood up to the challenge, as did the drivers. When we got to Apatia on the Adriatic coast, it was time for a demonstration.
Now let's just take off in top gear. Here we are going off really flexibly, as you can tell.
Isn't that amazing?
And it's in gear. I mean, we've taken off. Here we are, just wafting along in top gear. silent as a ghost. I tell you, these cars are really humbling cars from the gearbox department. Every now and again, every single one of us misses a gear. It's something that we hope we never have on camera. Whoops,
oh dear.
Missed it. It's pretty easy to miss sometimes if you're over-exuberant. So let's just put it in without the clutch. There we go. One of the things you have to be concerned about is pedestrians, other cars, other motorists who have no idea of how hard it is to stop a two-wheel brake car.
I was going to say, I mean, you seem to be coping very well, but doesn't it worry you driving through a town like this? Good.
Not really worry me. What I am is concerned that I keep an adequate distance between me and anybody else. These are, after all, brakes that are pretty old, and also they're not as good as all that.
In Slovenia, there was the chance to sample some even worse terrain. The organisers had managed to reopen the Leubel Pass, last used by traffic over 25 years ago. It was grass-covered and impassable just weeks before, but then the Slovenian road graders set about it with their bulldozers. The pass was strictly optional, and many drivers were quite worried about the steep gradients of nearly 1 in 3, with the occasional big drop. Some of the drivers had quite a few hairy moments.
A bit tough in 1 or 2 spots. I was just down to my last revs.
It seems too easy.
Really? Too easy?
Well, yeah, it was just a matter of staying in bottom and, you know, locking it over on each corner.
I didn't want to come. I thought he could do without a navigator on this bit of the road. But anyway, I'm glad I did, because it's not half as bad as I thought. But it's really been worth the effort.
The Leubel conquered, all that remained were the 330 miles back to Vienna. This wasn't a race, so there were no winners. But Colin Crabb and Ian Fraser were judged to have driven most consistently and raised the most for charity.
Oh boy! Congratulations, both of you.
It's amazing, isn't it? 1,750 miles of mountain motoring and hardly a single mechanical failure for any one of the 80-year-old Rolls Royces, which is more than can be said for the Top Gear troop, because we've had a broken alternator on our Range Rover, and we couldn't check the oil and water on our Chevrolet thing because the bonnet was stuck shut. Oh, we also managed to run out of petrol in a mile-long tunnel. For more of this amazing and magnificent event, watch our Top Gear special, Rolls-Royce and Alpine Challenge, on Monday, the 20th of December at 8:10 on BBC 2.